from Merrill Lynch. I have Dr. Montgomery, cryptocurrency. Right. I have Marion, Burke, real estate. Last but not least, without further ado, the lady of the event, Sheena Allen. All right, so I've had a wonderful time chatting with everybody, and I can tell you, for me, just being able to have people in this formal setting as well as informal with the online has just sparked something in me. And I feel like with this next session, it's going to be more of an experience for the knowledge that you're about to receive. So I want to just start from left to right. Introduce yourself, Marion, for the people who don't know you.
I am Marion Clayville Burks. I'm a realtor here in Shreveport. I am Ed Keller Williams Realty. That's the brokerage I work with. But I own the Marion Home Group. We have an office here, and we also have an office in Atlanta. I specialize in helping small business owners strategically invest in real estate so they won't have to just rely on the income of their business.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Rise, for having me here. My name is Jamar Doc Montgomery. I'm an attorney, engineer, business owner here. One of the things that I specialize in is in cryptocurrency, something I'm very, 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 very passionate about. Did I say I was passionate about it? But very passionate about cryptocurrency, very passionate about children, educating our children. I run a business called FEPS, called Family Economic Political Security, where we focus on real estate and also cryptocurrency investments. So I'm very excited to get to share some of my knowledge and my expertise here.
Hi, I'm Sheena. We've met before. Founder, CEO of Capway. Nice to be here.
Never gets old, Sheena. Never.
Hi, I'm Terry Moore. I'm with Merrill Lynch Wealth Management, and similar. I'm just glad that that you're doing a panel like this, and I think that there's a lot of information, and I've heard a lot of good information. So hopefully, I'll add to it.
All right, I'm Jay Owens from the Stock Train. Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Rod, for having me. Background about me and some engineering. I've been in the tech space for 15 plus years, and now we're starting a investment education company, trying to merge the two, get some tech into our community, as well as developing and educating people on how to properly stock invest and things of that nature going forward.
All right. So, for beginners, novice, as well as the intermediate, as well as the professional investors, we're talking about really healthy, wealthy, wise investments. So we talked about building a solid foundation, minding your business and your money, and then now healthy, wealthy, wise investments. So once you've gotten to a point where you have that extra dollar, or you're making, decisions where you can really, really move money into places to make you more money, where do you start? And I want to start with you, Jay.
I tell people not to make it very complicated as far as investing and learning how to stock trade or invest in things like that. If you just equivalate everything to time, as we was discussing last night, if you just can take the first hour out of your day and pay yourself. Someone mentioned earlier, what's the minimum wage? It's $7.25. If someone was to do that over a period of 30 years, just $7.25, and they just put it in an index fund or something, a return, something minus is 10% over 30 years, they would have $400,000 to $500,000 in 30 years. How many people have worked for 30 years don't have anything? If they just would have took the first hour out of their day and lived off 7 hours, because you're going to spend it somewhere. You're going to get coffee, a burger. You're going to do something with that first hour of income. And that's what wealth is storing it up so you can spend it later. If you just do that for 30 years, the $7.25 would turn into $500,000. That's not including if your house is paid off and other things that you may have when you hit your 50s. And that's just simple. Don't make it hard or complex. Don't overthink it at all.
All right. And so, Terry, from your perspective, Merrill Lynch, I know you've seen a lot of things over the course of your history with advising people. Where would you tell someone to start?
Start at the kitchen table, just like start with my kids. First thing I do is start with what you're buying, what you're using. You got an iPhone, why not invest in Apple? If you got Amazon coming to your house every day, why not invest in Amazon, right? Keep it simple, like we said. Once you get, a person has to understand what your previous speakers were saying, ownership. And the only question that you're asking yourself is, will this company be more valuable 5 years, 10 years from now than it is today? And if you're consuming, it probably will. So why not let that company benefit? You know, I can look out across, and if I were to ask for a show of hands, how many people go to Walmart? How many people how many people use Amazon? How many people have a laptop and use Microsoft, right? It's just simple stuff like that. But once you get your children and they start taking ownership and start enjoying, you know, on your summer vacation to Disney World, let the kids say, I own a part of this mouse, right?
I like that. Sheena, where would you say to start?
I'll actually piggyback off of actually what both of them said. To me, it's definitely starting with what you use. And I always tell people, you don't just start out paying some crazy amount. I mean, their stock is going up now, but I know for a lot of when I used to speak to high school students, I would always tell them, instead of buying the next pair of Nikes, buy Nike stock. At the time, maybe even a year ago, Nike stock was only like $70, $75. I think it's like at $130 now, but it's still cheaper than what they was gonna go buy a pair of shoes for. So I would say start somewhere small like that.
Got it. Doc?
Start with understanding what your time really is. And the reason why I say that was I didn't really come to a real appreciation of money until I started looking at it as a container for my time, my freedom, my energy, my resources. So if I look at money as a container for that, now do I want to waste my time? Do I want to waste my freedom? Do I want to waste my energy? Or do I want to grow that? So when I start looking at it from that perspective, like, that's not just money, this is blood, sweat, and tears that I had to trade in order to get that. So then now that's going to affect the decisions that I make with my money and being able to now invest my money. Because now if I have a different relationship with understanding what my money actually represents, now my money's gonna be working harder than my ancestors, right? So I want my money acting like a slave, working harder than a slave. So once I had that shift in what money truly was to me, then the way that I invested in, the way I spent my money became a lot different.
All right, Marion, real estate, where do we start?
Everyone should start with purchasing a home, because for most millionaires in America, because America is a capitalistic society, so I equate it to like a big monopoly game. So if you have enough houses on the board, then you win the game. But you have to own the property that you live in first. And with that, you need to buy it right the first time. So that doesn't mean your first home has to be like 3,000 square feet. It has to make sense financially. So you have to buy it right on the front end, which means you need to buy something that has equity in it, because equity equals wealth. So that's the very, very first step, learning what equity means, learning how you can leverage it, and learning how to purchase right.
Let's jump into this next question, because you hear a lot of people talk about net worth. You know, my net worth is everything, but assets over liabilities. Let's break this down. How do you achieve the net worth of $1 million? Break it down. From the investments, we talked about it earlier. Diversified portfolio. Not having all your eggs in one basket. So when you think in terms of somebody achieving that, say basic is $1 million. And I'm saying basic, but I don't mean basic, I mean, how do you achieve that?
You achieve it by discipline and over a long period of time. A lot of my students come to me and they think it's the jackpot. I want to invest $10 and just be a millionaire by next week. It does not work that way. It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of time before you can get to $1 million. And like I used to say the first hour, I set the minimum wage on purpose because it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep.
Yeah.
I see people who make hundreds of thousands of dollars and they blow through it very fast. So if you keep, as your income go up, if your lifestyle is here, wealth is created between the gap of when your income goes up and your lifestyle that you're currently living. That gap between there, if you're able to save and invest in between there, that's where the wealth is created and that $1 million will come. If you're disciplined and you consistently just do it over and over and over and over again, just like if you just diet, you're gonna lose weight. The same way, it's the same principle in anything. It's consistency. It's not an overnight thing. As far as how do you build it, there are several different things. I mean, stocks, homes, bonds, a business. There's many ways that someone can come up to $1 million net worth. There's just not one way. You could have a house that's paid off that's $1 million and they consider you a millionaire. But you may be like, I'm living paycheck to paycheck or something like that. So because you don't know how to generate income from that $1 million home. So just take your time and just know that it's a journey. It's not a mile, it's 1,000 miles and then some steps after. So just do that and you'll be okay.
Terry, I wanna kind of change this question, but ask the same question for the people out there with a net worth of $1 million, but they're including their 401k because it has $500,000 in it. What happens when they take that away? What's the true net worth? Because he said a lot of people factor their net worth differently based on your portfolio, but a lot of times companies are starting to take that 401k out of the picture because it's more risky. They don't want you going into your 401k. So once you take that out of the picture, how can you still attain it from a portfolio perspective?
Okay, that's a great question, and I'm gonna try to answer it, because you said something that was spot on. Just because you earn it doesn't mean, it's not what you earn, it's what you keep. And the first thing, wealth, most millionaires, they have 7 streams of wealth, okay? And the biggest one is gonna be their home. That's where your assets are, and that's what, Mary and I were talking about this before. You're gonna build the equity into your home. And you want your equity, you want your home to be in a place where the equity is appreciated, right? You don't want to own a home and you're in a city that the equity has gone up $300,000-400,000 on a home, and yet you buy in a community that the home ownership after 20 years is only, the equity is only going up $20,000. The next place where people really miss out is the 401k. You can't imagine how many people in our community will not participate in 401k. Right, that's free money. Tax-free money will grow faster than taxable money at any time. Then also your employer is matching. Most people think it's 3%, but if you really were to check, sometimes your 401k sponsors are matching up to 10%. They may just match the first 100% at 3%, but they may go down a small amount up to 10%. So don't leave money on the table. And then lastly, going back to how I opened the conversation, if you consume it, let that company pay you. The companies that I mentioned, Microsoft, Walmart, and these are just basic companies, right? Everybody knows it. But none of them have missed a dividend, right? So every quarter, let them send you a check. Own the stock, let them send it. And it's taxed at a lower rate than what you're paying on your ordinary taxes. So that's a way to start building the wealth to get to your $1 million.
Now, I'm not good at math. That 19.5 is the max that you can put in a 401k.
If you're under the age of 50.
age of 50.
right? And then you get the catch-up contribution over the age of 50.
Got it.
And, you know, again,
So do your math, 3%, 6% sometimes, or extra 2%, up to 10%.
and
That's
yeah.
free money.
And then just be abreast of what's the policy changes that are coming down that the Biden administration is proposing. They're talking about raising the contribution for the catch-up contribution a little bit more from 26 to 30, right? That's huge. But you know, people don't want to just take the time out and find out what and how. But if you're not participating in the 401k, it doesn't matter what they raise it to. You're leaving it all on the table.
Shane, from your standpoint, Silicon Valley, as well as coming from Terrell, Mississippi.
Terry City.
Yes. How do you advise people on building a net worth? Something that's achievable as $1 million net worth.
I think, especially coming from a small town, I agree with what Mary said. I think real estate is probably one of the best routes. Just because I'm big on all types of investing, stock, 401ks. I'm really big like index funds. However, because that's not a world they know very well, trying to go tell them to invest in even a 401k. I had an uncle who passed away and didn't have a 401k, and I remember before he passed away, I asked him why. I was like, why didn't you get them to match it? And he was like, oh, that's gonna take $12 off my check. He's like, I need all my money.
Exactly.
And he didn't, but he actually didn't grasp it until he retired. That dang, I need that $12. I wasn't gonna miss it because I need that money now, but it's too late at that point. So trying to explain to people who just they're not around their world I spoke to earlier. To go invest in something that they feel they can't see or they can't touch or they're penalized for. When you gonna tell somebody, invest this, I match it. If you're gonna take it out early, I penalize you for it. In their mind, they're like, no. So, seeing something more tangible is more like real estate. So I think in smaller towns, I would always recommend on that level. So I would recommend investing in more real estate versus trying to get them to invest in something like a 401k or crypto or any form of stocks.
Got it. And Doc, because crypto is so volatile, you know, explain why you may or may shouldn't have crypto in your portfolio to kind of build your net worth.
Okay. Well, crypto saved my behind in 2020. I was unemployed for about like 3 or 4 months. And because of an investment I had made basically in February, carried me through during those 4 months. Okay. Mind you, I've been involved in crypto for the last almost 5 years. So just that investment was what I needed. But I didn't have to touch any of what I had earlier. So when I look at crypto from a volatility standpoint, right? I'm looking, we need gas every day, right? In our cars. We're upset when the gas goes up. We're happy when the gas goes down, right? Does it stop us from buying gas? No, right? So what I tell people when I consult them is treat crypto like a savings account. Put it in, don't worry about it. Don't think about it. Why? If you focus on the price of it on a day-to-day basis, you're gonna lose out on all of the gains. So back in 2017, one of the investments I made was about $5,000, and Ethereum was about $750 at the time. Today, when I sold that from just 5 years ago, I sold it at $4,000. What kind of return is that? 500%? 100% a year? So now if I would have been focused on it on a day-to-day basis and watching the price drop and the price go up, right? I'm pulling my hair out, right? But having had experience of going into my 401k and then utilizing my money from my 401k to buy a house, to finish paying off my house, and then utilizing the leftover money to buy crypto, and seeing how just an investment that I made in my 401k, how that has paid dividends for me, and now owning my home, right? So that increases my net worth. Now going into what we consider alternative investments and how that's boosted my net worth, and have gone through the different cycles of volatility of watching me lose 50% of my investment, 70% of my investment, right? But those are all paper losses until I realize it. So if I would have been focused on the paper losses, right? I'll give another example. A lot of us may have had money during the 2008 recession. Yes? No? Some of us watched our portfolios drop, right? Upset. What do we do? Kept right on working. Look back 5-6 years later, oh man, my portfolio's doing well, right? So a lot of it is removing a lot of the emotionality from it because of just how volatile it is. If you're in a volatile situation, who usually wins that situation? The calmest person in the room, right? So now we have to approach our investments and approach wealth building the same way. Wealth creation and wealth generation is the new civil rights movement.
Okay. So I'm gonna come back to Sheik, because I heard you say something, and it was kind of like, where do you begin this conversation with crypto? And I think for most people it's an intimidating thing because some people don't think they have enough money, and some people it's just not the right fit. You're not ready to invest in crypto. You probably haven't done the research, probably hadn't done the homework, you're probably just reading the Reddit, right? You're trying to see what everybody else is doing.
Elon.
Where is the balance of really telling somebody and not trying to convince them whether they should or should not, because I'm a firm believer of doing your own homework first. But where does that conversation lie with you in just telling people that, hey, this could be a good thing, or this could be a bad thing for you?
Well, investing is risky, number one. And so even when you asked earlier, what do I recommend people start? I always recommend, as I mentioned, what's in your house. I think both of you gentlemen mentioned what's in your house, what do you use every day. But I usually also ask, like, what is your risk tolerance?
Right.
Like, that's like that should be the number one answer. I mean, the number one question that we ask, regardless of their age. I don't care if I'm talking to my 12-year-old nephew or if I'm talking to someone who's 40. First question I always ask before I even recommend anything is, what is your risk tolerance? Because if your risk tolerance is, I lose $5, I'm going to lose my mind, invest the game for you. Walk away. It's okay. I'd rather you go put that $5 machine down at Sam's Casino. Try to look at it, and if you do it, great. If you don't, cool. But if your risk tolerance is up there, then we can talk about different levels. So I always recommend what you're investing in based off of your risk tolerance. To his point is with crypto, it's still fairly new. It's not that it's new because you mentioned 10 years ago you've been.
Yeah.
10 you've been doing. So it's not that it's new, it's that it's trendy.
Yeah.
And we're at this point where everything is trendy, and it's like when you take an 18-year-old who doesn't know the research, and it's like, Elon Musk said I need to invest in this. Mark Cuban said I should invest in this, and it's like it tanks in 3 days. It's like I lost all my money. At 18, you were like
Devastated.
devastated. It is the end of the world. Whereas, as you mentioned, crypto is that thing where, like, if you put it in there, especially if you're going for Bitcoin or Ethereum, which is actual systems, then you gotta leave it. But I think it goes back to risk tolerance. Unfortunately, people are looking at crypto in more of a way of just it being trendy versus truly understanding what the true investment of crypto is. Crypto was meant to be decentralized.
Right.
We're using crypto the wrong way.
Yeah.
In the sense of how we use it now. And I'm sure people like you, there are people who are still using it the proper way. But crypto was meant to be decentralized. It was meant for when unbanked, underbanked. It was meant for third world countries. Like, the purpose of crypto is not how we're using and looking at crypto right now, especially in America. So I think that's my opinion. I think it's one of the biggest issues with crypto.
Go ahead.
And thank you for saying risk tolerance, because, and I'm a firm believer in crypto, right? But when you have a the most important part of planning for retirement is the 5 years directly before retirement and the 5 years after. That's standard financial planning. Because that 10-year window can wreck your portfolio. And if you're 60 and you take a 35% loss, you have less recovery time than that 18 or 20-year-old. So you gotta take that into consideration. So you have to look at, is this person, and for the most part, people in our community, this is the first or second generation that are actually investing. So you get a lot of phone calls. If it goes down $10, they're ready to pull out. And so imagine when they on statement, and I don't care if you got a doc making $600,000, if they open up their monthly statement and see they're down 157, that gets a reaction, right? And let's just start where we're at. In America today, women control 80% of the finances. Women think a lot more about just, what all it impacts. So it is tough for a mother that's balancing everything and looking at college to see a 30% drop over a quarter, let alone a month, right? So you have to address that particular person, and you have to customize your conversation for that person. And you had better both be on the same page, because when you recommend something, you as a fiduciary are responsible for that recommendation. And you have to read into whether or not that person is equipped to establish, because if I got $10 million, I can afford a 35% drop. If my 401k is at $250,000 and I'm 62 years old and 30% goes down, and I may not can afford that.
We're gonna come back around, but I want to kind of craft this conversation, because we kind of started with high level, like how do you build your net worth? Is it even possible? Which it is. You have a balanced portfolio that's mixed of several things: stock. You talked about 401k. You could possibly throw some crypto if you can afford it, if you're ready to take that risk, right? But from a holistic point of view, I want to know, what are some things that you kind of tell people through the stock train of having a well-balanced portfolio?
A well-balanced portfolio, I tell them, go into, as they were talking about as far as risk, go into something that's not very risky, maybe like your bonds and your mutual funds, index funds, things that's going to kind of coast you along in that aspect. Buying a home, right, and trying to pay it off, in 15 years if you possibly can. Keep your debts very low. Don't try, get those student loans paid off, get those credit cards paid off, keep that down, and just try to just keep any extra money that you got, put it into and invest it into something. And again, I go back and harp on, don't make it complicated. You can go to CNN.com and you can see like Merrill Lynch and Goldman Sachs and Fidelity and Vanguard and these companies. You can see what percentage of these stocks that they own. I know one thing, these companies like Merrill Lynch, they're not in the business of losing money. So if they're putting they own 27% of the stocks, I'm like, all right, I'm following big money. This is easy for me, an easy decision for me to know that this is a good stock. They're not going to invest in Disney if it's a bad idea. They've done all their research. I'm not in the business of reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But having a well-balanced portfolio is have your savings, right? Have that emergency fund saved up so you can live 6 to 12 months in case something, or when something actually happens, right? Don't overextend yourself on credit. If you're using credit, use it for something that you need, not things that you want. Buying Jordans and Christmas is not an emergency. It comes every year, all right? So let's just get that out the way. If you don't have it by November, your kids, they don't even need it. Matter of fact, they should change the narrative where they just open the envelope and they're like, another stock certificate. You gotta be kidding me. Shift that narrative into something like that. And then, like I said, keep things in less risky investments, your mutual funds, There's aggressive growth, there's growth in income, there's foreign stock, mutual funds, things like that that won't take that 30% drop as big. You know, it kind of diversify you within the fund itself because you're investing in multiple stocks, and you can go onto different websites that will break down that portfolio of what that mutual fund hold. Like I have tech funds, and it consists of Apple, Netflix, Facebook, and everything. And if Facebook is doing good, depending on the fund, they'll replace it with something else that's doing better. So I don't even have to do that. It's being managed by someone like a gentleman that's sitting next to me at Merrill Lynch, and I don't have to worry about that. So that's what I would do.
Okay, Marion, from a real estate point of view, how easy is it? Because a lot of people think you have to have a whole bunch of money to invest in real estate, and to really make that a part of your portfolio. How easy and simple is it to invest in real estate?
It's extremely simple. And getting to a net worth of $1 million is not complicated with real estate at all. It's just really in the numbers and buying right. So what I do for my clients, because I've helped 4 of my clients become millionaires in the last 6 years. And what we do is begin with the end in mind. So what we say is, okay, today we talk about your risk tolerance, like how risky are you? For me, I'm the risk taker. Like I'm gonna jump off the cliff and figure it out. My husband, he is very, he's very methodical. I'm gonna get up every day at 5 o'clock. I'm gonna fix the same sandwich. I'm gonna go to the same place. So his risk tolerance is low. So we always ask, we're gonna begin with the end in mind, asking about your risk tolerance. We're also gonna ask like, okay, what is the magic age for you to retire? So if your magic age is like 50 and you're 25 right now, so we know we got 25 years. So if we have 25 years and we know you have to make at least $15,000 to $20,000 a month, we're gonna make sure that we buy enough assets over those 25 years to get you to the $25,000 to $50,000 a month. And also what we're gonna do is look at your current debts. Because like I say, I love games. I love playing games. I love playing all types of board games and any type of games. Cash flow quadrant is like the best game ever. So you have your assets and you have your liability sheet. We're gonna look at all your liabilities, and those are the things that's gonna take away from this $1 million game. So once we look at all the things that you owe, we're gonna create a plan to pay those things off through real estate. We're gonna buy some properties and flip them and pay some of that off. We're gonna also hold some of these properties, but we're also gonna use some of that money to pay down the loan from the bank, so you can own some of these properties free and clear. And that's how we can get to a millionaire status faster. I have one couple that I just absolutely love. They just turned 33 years old, and they are absolutely retired. They own 3 streets in Highland, and they are just awesome. They listen, they're aggressive, and those are the things that you need to be. But I just met them in 2017. So it's not difficult. Like I said, it's all about numbers. Numbers don't lie. People make things look inflated, make things look hard, but it's really not. If you know your numbers, and I'm talking about basic math, because trust me, I am not your math student. So basic math, right. So basic math, if you know what you owe, you know what you're trying to get to, we can make those numbers work with real estate.
Okay. Yeah, I wanna go back, yes. Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Even when you do everything right, okay, you get the $1 million. One thing that we hadn't talked about, and the most important component, is healthcare, right? Because as physician clients will tell you, your client can save $1 million, I can wipe them out with a 2-week stay in the hospital, right? And that's the one thing that people don't. Long-term care, right? Make sure that you are equipped at an early age when it's cheaper and affordable, not when you're 45, 50, 55, or you have an illness that has disqualified you from getting long-term care, health care, or insurance, right? And then all those things are part of the wealth building process. Insurance is a tool. And I always ask people, would you rather pay the premium, or would you rather have to come up with $120,000? Most of them will say the premium. I'm sorry, I just one bad thing.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I have my own testaments to healthcare, but it's like how you say it. If you prepare for something to happen, you can set yourself up financially to where you're not going into your reserve for your 6 to 12 month savings. You'll have a nest egg, or you'll have a policy that can take care of you. And as we see with COVID, there were several people who died, or was on a ventilator for several months and didn't have a balanced portfolio that they can lean on to really get them through. Because if you're sick, you're not working. Let's put it in language. If you're sick, you're not working. If you're not working, you're not bringing in a paycheck. And if you're dependent on that paycheck every single week, you need to set yourself up to where you can have a balanced portfolio and the right proper insurance, as well as health care, to where you're not digging in your pockets, to where you're creating a rut for yourself because you're not able to maintain, where you sleep or where you eat. But another question is for Montgomery is, talk about dollar cost averaging. Because I think a lot of people think in terms of investing is that, like, I gotta have a lot of money. When really you could take $2 to $3, invest in the same stock mutual fund over time, and that dollar cost averaging would head you further than somebody taking $100 and making just a one-time simple investment and walking away. So speak to it in terms of dollar cost averaging and things that people can do tangible every single day to really make affordable investments that can take them to that network.
Okay. All right. So one of the things that you're fighting against is FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. So it's like you hear the story, oh man, I took $1,000 and I turned it into so-and-so, right? You're like, oh, well, I need to have that amount of money in order to experience those type of gains, right? That's usually what happens. What we don't look at is the $5 or $10 that we spend here, what we spend at Starbucks every week, right? $10, right? Don't let you have a list of all the different things that you're gonna have in your Starbucks drink. Your drink went from $5 to $8, right? Real quick, right? And then don't let you get you a little sandwich to go with it, right? Now, so now here it is when you, as I said earlier about changing the way that I looked at my money, right? What did I have to do in order to pay for this Starbucks, right? Versus now I'm gonna like, hey, Starbucks, you don't need it as much as my future does, right? Now I'm going to now the way in which I evaluate my money, and now I'm going to be looking at investments, right? So with dollar cost averaging, what that means is it's saying I'm not trying to time the market. The market is going to go up, and the market is going to go down. So if I look at it as I'm buying property, sometimes the property is higher, right? The price is higher, so I get a little less. Sometimes it's lower, and I'm able to get a little bit more. So if I'm saying I'm going to invest $10 every week, literally $10 every week, and I'm going to invest it in crypto, right? One of the ones that I invest in is Ethereum. So if you today wanted to go and buy cryptocurrency, you would open up a Coinbase account, the same way that you basically open up a bank account. You give me your social security number, address, driver's license, right? And you buy you $10 worth of crypto, and you did that every day for the next year, right? You spent, what was that, $5,200? My math bad? No, $520.
Well, you said every day or every day?
Yeah, $520. Yeah, $10 a week.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm sorry,
$520.
$520.
Yeah, it's $520 for a week.
$520. You see what I mean? Yes. So I've invested $520 into the market, but I haven't tried to time the market. I haven't tried to wait for that opportunity of me having $500 in order to invest all at once. But I've invested $520 over that period of time. Now, depending on what the market is doing, you might be up. You might be up, or you might be down. But what you have done is you've bought yourself property. And in this case, in cryptocurrency, you've brought digital property or digital assets. So now I said, back in 2016, I was in law school buying crypto, right? I wasn't making much money, but I was utilizing what I had. And yes, you sit there looking at yourself like, man, I'm spending $10 and I'm trying to do this, and what is it going to do? Is it going to do anything for me? Oh, yes, it did. Oh, yes, it did, right? So, when we look at dollar cost averaging, it goes back to my original example of gasoline. If you look at, I need investments, right? I look at it, I need crypto. So I need crypto whether or not I'm balling or I'm balling on a budget, right? I need crypto like I need gasoline. So every week I'm buying gasoline, every week I'm buying crypto. Now, if I'm looking at it from a longer term horizon, a long-term horizon, if I want to say a year, or I want to say 2 years, or I want to say 5 years, you're going to be very happy. I've at least been very happy, and the people I've consulted have been very happy with the results that they've got. So one, having that, changing the way in which you look at your money. It's not money, it's a container for your time, your energy, and your freedom, right? Your life, because you never get whatever you traded to get that. You never get that back. Change up my relationship, then start looking at, hey, I start off small. Empires are built brick by brick. So it wasn't built with a giant concrete slab. It was built brick by brick. So if your brick happens to be $1, or if your brick happens to be $100, every time that you lay that brick, you're building your financial empire.
Okay. All right. Dollar cost averaging for you, broken down like gasoline. So Sheena, when we talk about closing this wealth gap for generations, maybe in your own family, it may look different. It may be the wealth gap, but you may be 4 generations away. You may be 3 generations away. You just may be the person to really make that difference in this one generation. How do you see investing as a way to close that generational wealth gap, and what can people do to really make strides to reach it?
I mean, once again, we're a capitalistic country. We're gonna spend money regardless. But I mean, for millennials and Gen Z, investing is literally will be a make or break for us in retirement, because we won't have retirement unless something changes. It may or may not. But they're telling us now, hey, look, if you're 20, if you're 30, Social Security might not be there for you. So investing for this younger generation, it's gonna be it's not one of those like it's cool or it's I want to do what we should do. It's almost like you're gonna have to do. You don't have a choice, because Social Security won't be there. And we see now, even with maybe some of our grandparents or older people that we know, we go into the Walmart and you see the 65-year-old or 7-year-old at the door because they have to work. They're not there because they want to be at Walmart at the door. Like they're there because they have to work. They probably didn't have retirement from their first job. Probably didn't want to do it because they didn't want to give up their $12. That a lot. But for our generation, millennials and Gen Z, we don't even have that option at all. So for us, I think investing is not you should do it. It's almost like you have to do it. So I think our conversation for a young generation is different. It's still generational wealth, but it's a different conversation even for ourselves, because we won't have what our grandparents had.
It's a must.
Can I? So they say the numbers say by 2053 the net worth for the black family will be 0. So right now I think it's on average about
17,000.
17,000. So in 2053, that's not long. So that just means we're going progressively backwards. So what we would have to do, like Sheena was saying, we don't have a choice in investing. It has to be investing, but you have to find something that you're comfortable with. You don't have to, I don't feel like you have to feel pressure to invest in everything. I think you need to invest in the things that you are passionate about, that you're interested in, that you want to learn about, and get very knowledgeable about those things and invest. And I know you asked earlier easy it is. It's very easy. And again, it starts with you purchasing your own home. And just for the sake of time, because it's the evening time, we just gonna get real. Even if you don't purchase your own home, we all have family members who have homes that are just sitting there. You all have grandparents that have just land that's just sitting there. And those things aren't making any money, and it's not helping the family at all. So you have to have some tough conversations and say, hey, you had this house sitting over here for such and such years. Uncle Bubba ain't getting out of jail. So we're gonna have to figure out what we're gonna do with it.
Right.
And we're gonna come up with a plan so we can make sure it's worth something. Like I was talking to someone earlier, they have a property, and even if the property is worth, let's just say if the property is worth value at $100,000, if you take it to the bank as an investment, the bank will give you 80% loan to value, which means this $100,000 property, the bank will give you $80,000. They'll give you $80,000 because they're gonna attach a lien to that property. But with that $80,000, you can take it to fix up that house, put a renter in it, and the renter is going to pay the $80,000 back to the bank for you. And then you're gonna take the rest of that money and go and invest more with it. That's just on the real estate side of things. But we all know somebody who has just properties just lingering on and just collecting dust because they think one day they're gonna do something with it. And that is just money sitting there for you. And then these properties that's in the hood, it's a gold mine. Because if you can get a whole bunch of those and do the same thing, 80% loan to value, if you get some that where you get $25,000 per property, you do that 4 times, that's $100,000. And you can just do that over and over and over and over again until you can create wealth for yourself in the aspect of real estate. But real estate might not be a thing. It might be crypto. It might be other investments. But you have to find something. You can't just stick your head in the sand and pretend like it's gonna go away. Because nobody's gonna save you and nobody else is gonna help you but you.
That part. So I wanna kind of pivot this conversation because when you talk about closing the wealth gap, essentially, historically, you know, we had to go to institutions to learn these things or go to an advisor. And as Sheena said, this new generation, it's pretty much at their fingertips because of technology. Now there's so many apps that you can do real estate investing, Fundrise. If you're an accredited investor, you can get on equities in. There's so many different platforms out there available to make choices, right? How do we begin this conversation of this technology gap and building wealth? Because Robinhood, right? That's an app. You pretty much do the investing yourself. You don't need an advisor. Fidelity has some programs that are out there. You can either choose to use an advisor or you can pretty much, you know, build your own portfolio, as well as Merrill Lynch. They have different categories depending on where you are in your life, what your net worth is, what your portfolio looks like. But a lot of these things, you know, the barrier to entry is greater than what we can think in our community because of the technology gap. So can you put or quantify that of what you're doing to kind of close that gap and really educate people and what's out there? Like, you know, can you speak to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I started the stock training, it literally started over the pandemic. Before then, like I said, I was in the tech space and trading and talking to people, investing. So I learned the hard, old school way, reading books, going to the library, talking to people, and people would just say, invest. And that sounds good, but literally, like I'm saying, our community, specifically, like the ocean, specifically, how do you actually do it? Open up a brokerage account. What is that? Like, how do you actually do this? Like, I don't get what you're talking about. I don't know what a brokerage account is. I don't know how to do it. And it just sounds very, very simple. So what we started doing with the stock training, we just had a test run with just close family members and friends, just like 50 people. And every Sunday, I would just get on Zoom and I would just break it down. These are brokerage accounts. These are the places you can go open up a brokerage account. And I started, and I had to take a step back because I was doing like I learned in college and things like that. I'm telling them the show's motto and standard deviation. It was like, really?
Right.
I don't get it.
Right.
Break it down. And I went back and I said, what is the stock market? And I looked and I said, we do it literally every day. We go to Walmart, we go to Target. That's the exchange. The people that provide it, General Mills, Lucky Charms, everything you see on the shelf are sellers. They're putting things on the shelf for you to see it. Market price is simply the shelf price that you see, right? And they're like, okay, that makes sense. I'm like, the cashier would be considered the brokerage firm. They don't control the price that's on the shelf. You literally just go to them and you say, I got these items, I want to check out, right? Your debit card is your brokerage account because it pays for the item, and then you own the stock. Whenever you go, like during a pandemic and they were out of tissue, they tell you, I'm out of stock. We're restocking. It's literally the same concept. It's the exchange. If you say, I don't want to pay that $5 for that cereal, what did you do? Cut out a coupon. That's a limit price. It's very, very simple. So what we're doing at the stock training is teaching people step by step. You don't have to be a genius in order to learn how to trade stock, how to invest, how to do things. And I tell people, there's only two things that can happen with money. Either you're going to be paying interest or earning interest. So if you just keep that in mind and you just look at things on day-to-day activities that you do and just make it very relatable to everyday life, it's very easy. Don't complicate anything.
Hey Terry, how are you closing that technology gap with your clients? What are you seeing?
Sure, we embrace technology. You're gonna have to find someone that you trust, because at some point it's gonna get complex. Technology, when things, and I go back to the students that I teach, when Robinhood crashed, who was there for you? They were just there watching their accounts go to zero, okay? So you need to have that alternative. But to close the wealth gap, it starts, and thank you for saying it, it starts with ownership. The wealthiest people, the wealthiest 1% who we deal with, they're not renters, they're not leasers, they are owners. They control the asset. If you do not control it, you will not have benefit of the asset. And we talk about it with homes, except the wealthiest 1% own the businesses, right? Their generations have been passing down the wealth built in the equity of home ownership, land ownership, resource ownership. If you don't learn the word own, you're not going to close that gap. And then you have to be realistic on when you say close the wealth gap. We can anticipate, we can want to close the wealth gap, but the reality of it is, you're not going to close the wealth gap on Jeff Bezos. Right? He's making more money per second than most people are going to see in a lifetime. Right? But what you can do is change the mindset to that I am going to use or consume, to every conversation could be, how am I going to own it?
So I've heard two things. Educate yourself from you and Jay, and then ownership. Sheena, from your perspective, where does this line and balance come in with technology? Because you're here because of your banking app, right? And then from the investment side, there's so many opportunities, right? And with opportunities come, you need to educate yourself. But going back to that, how do you really impress upon people the importance of learning these new applications? Because with crypto, he talked about Coinbase, but you got Kraken, you got Crypto.com, you got different apps that are just popping up. And it goes back to doing your research. If you don't do your research, you don't know if this app is stable. You don't know if it's a certified, trusted app that that you should be doing business on, especially if you don't have a secure wallet. So can you speak to that technology gap and what people need to really know about investing in this new age of investments?
Well, the number one issue actually is that with the technology, learning technology or using technology to invest or get ahead, is that I would say the people who need it the most don't have access to technology. That's actually the number one problem. So we still have a digital gap issue that speaks to, before you can speak to a technology gap issue. So we saw this with virtual learning. All of a sudden you look up and kids are like, I don't have access to the internet. 15% of Americans don't have access to the internet, I believe, something like that. So it's a higher number than I think we put out on front street. So number one, people need technology the most to learn from the bottom up. Don't even have access, couldn't get access to it if they wanted to. I can go to Delta, Mississippi right now and say, here's a mobile app. You're in the banking desert. Use it. No overdraft fees. And be like, well, how am I gonna connect to it?
Right. Broadband, no broadband.
What I supposed to do with it? So our number one issue is that, and Verizon's, AT&T, they've been working for apparently for years. We haven't gotten anywhere with this whole conversation. So that's number one. Number two, with technology, you have to also. I always say that every app that comes out, learn what their goal and what their mission is, and it's not hard. You can Google it. You can look on their website. Everybody has a different mission to what they do and why they do it. Robinhood has their issues. Maybe you like, look, I ain't trying to get caught up in that. On the back end, they in with the Wall Street guys. They going against me long term. I ain't trying to deal with them. It's honestly not hard to figure it out. Stash is more of like, I charge you $5, but I'm gonna give you this literacy, and we're gonna do X, Y, Z. So I think it goes back to, if you just literally take, honestly, maybe 5 minutes and just look at the back history or the mission of that application, that will tell you you can decide based off of that. This is the one that's for me, and that's across this for investing apps. Because you have Webull, you have Coinbase, you have. I mean, some people like Coinbase. They're like, oh, Coinbase is public, and you're using fiat dollars to back crypto. That goes against why I do crypto. But those are literally just 5 minutes of research to determine if it fits for you or not.
Okay, Doc.
Call BS when you see it. What do I mean by that?
Yeah, what you mean?
People can give you every excuse on why they're not going to invest. Right? You see them do something stupid, they have no explanation for you. So here it is you watch decisions that you make, right, that are not beneficial to you at all. Well, you know, one of the debates that I've had is you know, well, the access to information, right? You have to want to be wealthy. You have to want to be in a better financial situation. And if you're not doing the things that allow you to do that, if you're not looking for that information, nothing that I give you is going to work for you. So if a lot of I think what we do is we spend our time with people who aren't going to do anything in general. And as a result, that robs the people who actually want to do something, who may not necessarily have the resources. We rob them of giving them actually what it is that they need. So in minimizing that gap, I think it's about focusing our time and energy on people who actually want to do things, because we come up from a resource-constrained community. We're the richest poor people on earth. Right? The richest poor people on earth. Why? It's funny, we talk about looking at around our house and the things that we invest in, right? How many of our houses have a Hennessy bottle in it right now? Right? Right? So here it is. It's just in our habits. We make the company LVMH rich, who's on the stock market, right? So just in some sense of, I don't know, maybe you just haven't been broke enough where you're like, something gotta change. Something gotta change, right? That fire and that desire is going to, I don't know who, somebody got it. Somebody's got the information. Somebody's got the resources that I want. So when I say about calling BS when you see it, it's like, no, you really don't want to increase your net worth. You're trying to be rich. You're trying to be rich. Yeah. And that's okay. That's okay. But recognize that the reason why something is exclusive is because you're on the outside, you can't get in. So do you really want to be, what position do you want to be in, and are you willing to go after the information to get it? Because I truly feel that this world, like everything that we need, is already here. Right. Like the iPhone has been here for thousands of years. We just didn't have the necessary technology and the mind frame in order to put it together. But when that time came, iPhone was here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're getting towards the end of the program. Does anybody have any questions on stocks, mutual funds, IRAs, portfolios in general? Investing question. Alan.
My question is kind of more of a riddle question. What would you say to the person that's struggling just to pay their current bills, who may not have anything extra to invest? I feel like that's a real story for a lot of people. And a lot of people want to, but just, I'm just struggling with DirecTV right now.
Right.
Hmm.
I would say,
I would say cut direct to TV.
I mean,
I'm being honest with you.
But you know, I say something more simple.
right, no, I would say look for the opportunities, because like they were saying about closing the wealth gap, and I do agree, if we do spend a lot of time on people who don't want it, but for me, I was one of those people that was dirt poor. And so it was, although I wanted it, I needed an incentive to get it. You get what I'm saying? So Mr. Moore here, he could attest to it. One of my mentors is Mr. Horton, which is one of his clients. And Mr. Horton paid for my education. He paid for all 4 years of my college.
Wow.
And I wanted it, but I had to get an incentive for it, but I had to recognize the opportunity for it. Same thing with Miss McGee that was sitting here. She was back there saying she was about to cry because she raised me. I was in her after school program. I couldn't eat. So I went so I could eat. I happened to learn from a wonderful woman like her, but I needed the incentive. So people today that don't have it, because like you said, we are the richest poor country. So there's opportunities out here for you to get it. I just think we have to teach our people how to see the opportunity. Because there's an opportunity for you to be able to pay your bills. You might have to sacrifice a little bit of your time. You might have to humble yourself and go and ask somebody. But there's always opportunities for you to feed yourself right now. It's just, what are you gonna give up for it?
I add to
I
that.
love it. I love it.
A more realistic approach, I'll just cut DirecTV, I'm just joking. But a more realistic approach, one of my mentors that I actually met at the gym is him and his family, his 6 brothers, there's 7 of them, they moved over here. They moved in a 1-bedroom apartment, and they worked at Sonic, gas stations, and things like that. And they all collectively, we always talk about investing in individually, but we're never gonna do anything unless we come together in a group, as a group. Your fists are stronger together, and they literally save together. They put all their income together and they put it in $10,000 every year, $10,000. They formed the LLC and went to the bank like 5 years later. And they purchased the Valero that one of the brothers was working at. They put him to work. And that's how you do it. Everyone can sit at the Christmas table, Thanksgiving table, and everyone talk about individuals say, oh, I'm an RN, I'm a teacher, I'm a this, I'm an engineer, I'm a this. It's $1 million sitting at the table, and nobody think, we should put our money together. No one ever thinks about doing
Recognizing the
that.
opportunity.
Then it's an opportunity right there. And needless to say this, my mentor, now they own 40 Valeros across DFW and like 6 medical practices. And they started in a 1-bedroom. And as he drove off in his Ferrari, I just said, I talk to him all the time from then on. Just put your mind together, and you can. We're great people. We can do it.
Yeah, it's cultural.
Well,
Yep,
the other
it
thing
is.
to add to your direct answer, and you brought it up, and thank you for bringing it up. And you talked about dollar cost averaging, but when I ask people in our community, did you set up a 529 for your kids? Because that's the most valuable resource that you got that you're gonna pass on. And dollar cost averaging, you can set a college savings plan, and it pays for K through 12 if you want to use a private school. And there is, it's not a minimum, if you open it with $1,000, but that's something that you can add to. Now you're not only investing in the future, you're getting a break for it, and you're ensuring that that next generation does have the capacity or has already started learning what it's like to invest in the most important education, and that's the education of themselves, right? And so I appreciate you bringing that up about talking about the Delta, and I appreciate you saying.
Anybody else have any questions? All right, as we wrap up, I'm gonna go around. last roundabout, how can they find you? What do you want them to know before we exit out?
All right, what I want you to know is we've discussed for all day today about generational wealth. And what is a generation? It starts with the name. So my goal is to empower everyone. So just for myself, I want my name to have something for generations to come, meaning I want it to stand for something righteous, something powerful, some wealth behind it. And my question to you today is what will your name mean in 1,000 years for yourself? You can find me at www.thestocktraining.com, or you can go to the back and scan our QR code, and you can join our Facebook group, Instagram, Twitter, and all of that. Or just come up to me when I'm hanging around and we can chat about it.
And I'm gonna tell y'all something, stock train be jumping. I'm on Telegram and I get like 20,000 million alerts, and that's not even a number, but that's how many alerts I get. Go ahead, Terry.
Easy. My why is just leaving a legacy, that I probably won't even see. And that's reaching people in our community and making their life, if we can make it just a little bit better, then I've left a legacy. And I can be reached at www.mymerrill.com and just type my name in, and it'll pull up the bio.
All right. Sheena?
I'll leave with everyone in this room we talk about not having access. Everyone in this room for the most part has access. So I will say, with the access that you have, don't fumble the bag. Best analogy I'll give, in the pandemic, we all went virtual. How many people in here use Google Hangout for virtual? 2, 3 people. How many people use Zoom? My point is, everybody had a Gmail account. Kids were doing Google Classroom, but who's using Hangout? Who's using Zoom? Google fumbled the bag, big time. We all have access. You can't fumble the bag when you got it right there in your hand. And you can find me at SheenaAllen.com.
Google fumbled the bag.
Person learning that.
Wealth generation, wealth creation is the new civil rights movement. What are you willing to get your head cracked open for? What are you willing to show up at somebody's front door about? Like, nobody's feeling sorry for you if you're poor. Nobody cares if you're poor. Yeah, we might feel it this way, but you don't spend your money on it, right? So the best thing that you can do is not become one of those people. So to be very serious about building wealth for you and your family, and being unapologetic about it. At the end of the day, when retirement day comes, who's going to take care of you? Right? So it really comes down to looking at it that bluntly and that simplistically. But, hey.
How can they reach you?
Oh, how can you reach me? Doc Montgomery, DOCMontgomery.com. I'm also Dr. Dr. Jamar, Jamar Montgomery on Instagram, and you can find me Jamar Montgomery on Facebook as well.
What I want to see is Shreveport really utilize all its opportunities. We have so much opportunity here. So my goal has always been to make sure Shreveport realize the wealth that we have here, because we do have opportunity. And you don't have to go to Dallas, you don't have to go to Houston, you don't have to go to Atlanta. You can realize it here at home, and make sure the kids see you, because it's important for these children in this area to see wealthy people with good hearts. So we need more wealthy people, and like you said, you have to be unapologetic about it. And the civil rights movement is not a new movement, but it's the only movement we're gonna have, or we will die. So that is my legacy. That's what I work every day for. You can always find me at on Facebook, Marion Clayville Burks, on Instagram at the Marion Home Group. And also January the 14th through the 16th, we're having a big real estate investment seminar again here at the Convention Center, where we're teaching everybody everything they need to know to do wealthy.
I love it. So thank you guys for tuning in. Rise Shreveport. We have a host of events. We have Party with a Purpose that's coming back in December. If you wanna reach and know more about RISE Shreveport, which stands for Resilient Individuals Striving for Excellence, you can go to riseshreveport.com, as well as visit Rise Shreveport on Facebook and Instagram. If you just personally want to connect and network with me, it's K West on Instagram and K West on Facebook. Thank you all for attending. Thank you all for coming out. And I hope that you felt empowered, that you learned something, and that you're gonna go out and share something that you learned today. Thank y'all so much. See you later.
Yeah.